thing it says is, what would happen if I add a red and blue light, then a blue and green light, and then a green and red light, and then all three of them together. We did this as a lab already. So here is my blue light, here's my red light, and in the middle we get magenta. Okay, the next one is going to be blue and green. So here's my blue, here's my green, and in the middle we get cyan. And then the last one is green and red, and in the center there we get yellow. And then if I add all three together, you can see it gets white light. So there's my red, there's my green, there's my blue, and in the center you have white light. Okay, so there's the questions 1 through 4 right there. This is an old school overhead projector. Pretend that this is like a pure white light. And we all know that white light is made of red, green, and blue light. That's why on the front of this, you have the red, green, and blue squigglies. This is your light, your white light. So that's why all of these start with white light, okay? First question says, what happens if I put a green transparency on an overhead projector? Here is green, this is white light, and all of a sudden, all I have is green light. So your question is, what would happen if I put a green colored transparency film on an overhead projector? We see green, okay? Why do we see green? What happened to red and blue? They got absorbed by green, okay? So this is, again, red, green, and blue, but the only reason why we only have green is because red and blue have been absorbed, okay? So what if the transparency film was red? Boom, there's red. Shocker, so we see red. And then here's blue. Again, shocker, we see blue. And you will color these other squiggly lines on the other side right here. So we saw green, so this one will be green, this one will be red, that one will be blue. And now we are going to move on to the next part. So this is numbers 9 and 10. Number 9 says, what would happen if I put a red transparency film and a blue transparency film stacked on top of each other? So here's my red, here's my blue, and we know from before red and blue make magenta, but what do we get here? We get nothing, okay? Everything has been blocked off. So what you are going to do here is from this point on, you have your little red box, only red comes through, so that'll be your little squiggly line in between. And then blue, that question mark becomes a big X. We see nothing. Okay, so the next question is, and the reason why that's happening is because red has absorbed blue, so from this point on, there's no blue. Blue absorbs red, so from this point on, there's no red. So if there's no blue, there's no red, and there's no green, you get nothing. Okay, the next question is red and green, so here's my red, here's my green. Stack them, oh goodness, we see nothing again. Okay, and then my last one is going to be green and blue, so there's my blue, there's my green. Stack them on top of each other, and you see nothing passes through yet again. All right, so we have handled red, green, and blue. Okay, so what happens, how is stacking the transparencies different from putting them on separate transparencies? So I used to do this where there were 3 transparencies, but I've moved to flashlights. Right here is we have 3 different light sources. So this one is only showing red and it's not being blocked out by blue. Whereas here, if I put red and blue on top of each other, they are blocking or absorbing each other. So that's why they're being absorbed here and we see nothing here. But here, they're not absorbing each other. So you are seeing all of the colors mixed together, and that's additive color. This is subtractive color. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so number 13 says, what would happen if I put a yellow transparency film on the overhead projector? Here's my yellow. Oh my goodness, we see yellow. Okay, but what 2 colors is yellow made of? That's right, it's red and green. Okay, and the way that I remember this is like a stop sign. Red and green make yellow. That's how I remember it. Okay, so your 2 squiggly lines will be red and green. What happens if I do this with magenta? Oh goodness, I see magenta, but what 2 colors is magenta made out of? Go back and look at your questions at the very beginning. And then again, here is cyan. Okay, we see cyan, but you can see what two colors, and you'll make your two squiggly lines on top of that. Okay, moving on to number 16. What would happen if I put a yellow and a magenta transparency on top of each other? So here's my yellow, here's my magenta. I'm going to stack them. You're going to think that everything's going to be blocked out, but we get red. Okay, the reason is, I mean, yeah, you're wondering why. What two colors does yellow allow to pass through? It's red and green. What two colors does magenta allow to pass through? It is red and blue. The only color they have in common is red, so that's why we see red. So yellow blocks blue, magenta blocks green, or absorbs green, and that's why we have red at the end. So after your yellow box, you'll have your green and red squiggles, and then after your magenta box, you'll have your red squiggle. Okay, next one is magenta and cyan. Here's magenta. Magenta absorbs green. Cyan absorbs red. The only thing that they don't absorb is blue, so we should see blue. It's very dark, but you can see it nonetheless. Okay, and then our last one here is going to be cyan and yellow. I'm going to stack them on top of each other. So cyan blocks or absorbs red. This one absorbs blue, so the only color they have in common is green. Whoop, there you go. Okay, and then your last challenge questions, what would happen if I put magenta, cyan, number 19, magenta, cyan, and yellow on top of each other, and you can see that it blocks it all out. Okay, this is how our printers work. So magenta, yellow, and cyan are our three printer cartridges. So here's magenta and cyan, you can see it. And then I've misplaced my yellow one, but it's in there somewhere. I don't know where it went, but yeah, you can look in your printer. And then the challenge questions, how can we use three transparencies to make red light? Magenta is made of red and blue, yellow is made of red and green, and then red is made of red. So they all have red in common, so red it is. All right, y'all. Hope this helps. If you have any questions, email your teacher.